In this video, we're going to be discussing specifically the configuration and requirements for setting up either ACH or bank payment files for electronic payment for vendors and/or employees, and what needs to be done for this. Let's take a look. Inside Intacct, you're going to have the ability to pay vendors and/or employees via an electronic file generation for ACH, or what we call a bank file. And you're going to be able to download that Nacha file, that bank file, and upload that to your bank automatically in the system. So one of the first things you want to consider is really outside of Sage Intacct is you're going to want to reach out to your bank and find out their file requirements. Each bank is very different in what they require in the system, and it's going to direct you into which route you should take for setting up and configuring that bank. And it could be different. One bank could be ACH, one bank could be bank file generation, or hopefully we can define one method for all to save on some workflows for you in the system. But one of the things you need to do is reach out to your bank and discuss their requirements. And the big factor in reality is what's going to be required is called a balanced file or an unbalanced file. Out of the box with ACH file generation and Intacct, this ACH file is only going to be an unbalanced file. So in cases where a specific bank needs a more specific configuration and needs a balanced file or different versions of that balanced file, there is a new feature in Sage Intacct where we can enable and use what's called bank file generation, which gives us more options on that file. So the first thing is where can you do ACH file generation? Well, you can do it within accounts payable. You can actually, when paying bills, you're going to have the opportunity to select to pay via ACH, which will trigger that file. And you're going to also be able to do it through time and expense when you're reimbursing your employees for expenses, or if you're using the Sage Intacct Construction payroll, you're going to have the ability to do direct deposit for their payroll through here through an ACH or a bank file. Out of the box in your subscription, ACH is already going to be configured and turned on. If you need the bank file method where you need to establish between a balanced file or your bank has more specific rules, you're going to want to make sure that in the subscription you have that enabled. So I'm going to go in and take a look at that. So under top level, under company, if I go into subscriptions here, you're going to scroll down and you're looking for a menu item called Sage Cloud Services. So if we scroll down here, you'll notice mine's right here, and it should already be enabled for you. If it isn't, please make sure it's enabled. And when I go into here and click configure, there's going to be some different options that I can turn on and off. And one of them is this right here, enable bank file payment. So that's going to enable it and make it available. So for a particular bank, we can choose which method, either ACH or bank file payment. So you do want to make sure that this is enabled, and mine is here. And you would go ahead and click save. And then what I'm going to do is kind of take you into the actual cash management module and show you where that would get set up and configured based on your bank account. So in cash management, under checking, you're going to have your banks in here. If you haven't set them up already, you're going to want to do this obviously after you set up your bank in Intacct. And one of the important things to configure is you don't necessarily need to configure this part of your bank at this time. This usually happens later in the process. The more important thing is to reach out to your bank and find out what type of file you need. And of course, if you have any questions or concerns, reach out to us, reach out to Ask Richard, jump on a Q&A, and we can help you figure out from your bank and help interpret which file you need. But in this scenario, I'm going to go in and show you where it is. So in the bank setup, I'm going to click Edit. And you'll notice there's a tab here called Bank File. So inside the bank file here, you're going to have options to enable it. And this is the decision point. All right, is this bank going to use the ACH unbalanced out of the box default, or do we need to set up a more robust bank file payments? In either case, I'll click it here. And when I do, it will ask me to set up the required information that is needed for this bank to provide that file. Now, what's really nice is you have the ability to come into here and you can actually go into the help and find out more information about the requirements, either from ACH or the bank file payments. If you click on either one of these, it's going to take you into a more in-depth requirement. And one of the things is to find out under field descriptions, what you need on the bank and what represents the bank in the setup. Okay. So, and again, we'll get into this down the road, but if I come into here and add a new format for ACH, I can fill all that information in. If you know what it is, great. But if you don't, this is where you want to use the help. And then you can come into here and say standard ACH bank configuration. And the system will guide you and tell you each one of these fields and what is required for the bank. And a lot of times you can send this screenshot to the bank as well, what they need. So this information will need to be configured for your bank side in the system, along with things like, if you notice over back in the detail tab, the account number is going to be in there, things like that. Okay, so it's a combination of all of this setup. And if this bank did require like a balanced file, for example, I'm going to click on this enable bank file payment method, and you'll notice it's going to now ask you which type of file does this bank require. And there's a lot of options here, and usually your bank will tell you this. But they need a balanced with end of field marker. They need, there's different options here. And once we find the option that we need, we click it, and now it expands again, and then it asks those same types of questions. And again, this is going to be based on the banking information that they would provide to you. So that's where it needs to be set up on your bank's side. Okay. In addition to that, if we're going to use it with vendors and employees, and you'll see this again when we get into the configuration for accounts payable and time and expense, but each one of those areas is going to require that setup as well. And you want to be in the same basis, meaning if you're using the bank payment file method, you want to make sure you're doing that on the vendor side. If you're using the ACH method, you want to do that on the vendor side. So you want to really get that ironed out first before you take the time to either configure your vendor banking information or your employee banking information, do all that work, and then you got to redo it anyway. So for example, if I go into accounts payable, I'm going to pull up a vendor. And let's just say A1 Electric, we're able to pay them electronically. So we're going to come into here and hit edit. And you will notice once we get in here that under bank file tab, you have that same screen that you saw on the bank side. So you'll have the ability to enable ACH or enable bank file payments. And then it'll say which country, we'll say United States, and then it'll bracket out and get you the requirements for that. So that's what's important here, is to figure out which method you're going to use, and then from there, fill out the information that you're going to need in the system. This information can be imported in through the templates in Intacct, the vendor information, and also the employee. So the employee would look very similar. If we go into the employee setup, you would see the same idea here. If I click edit, you're going to have what's called the employee information is going to be hidden under the reimbursement information tab. In here is where you can do that same kind of enabling. So you can see here in my example, ACH is enabled and I have the employee's banking information filled out. So you'll get into that configuration more, especially if you have payroll on the employee side, and then the accounts payable area, you'll get into the configuration on that. But both of these can be imported as well in the system. And last but not least, another thing to consider is when you get into the workflow testing is where we'll actually get to the point where we can go through this process and generate some payments and create some test files that you'll then be able to upload to your bank and ask them, hey, is this a valid file? Can you please test this for me? So we want to get all that worked out before we go live, because we don't want to have those issues first week of go live. So thank you for watching the video. If you have any questions or concerns on this, please reach out to Ask Richard. Like and subscribe, and look forward to talking to you soon. Thank you.